Again then guys, and welcome to something a little bit different on the channel today. I don't typically do product reviews, but on this occasion I'm going to make an exception because this product is near and dear to my heart. I love the source material of it, and it does kind of border over into gaming territory. Now, the particular product is a graphic novel. It's actually a hardback graphic novel which was produced by Activision to tie into the release of Prototype 2. Now, I'm not sure how many of you guys who are my existing subscribers have played the Prototype games. If you're unfamiliar with them, they are a third-person, free-roaming, ultra-violent, virus-based game where you play as one of the most overpowered characters in video game history. In the first game you play as one character, in the second game you play as another, and basically this particular graphic novel takes kind of a after the event look at the first game and then sets up a pre-event in the lifeline of the character who you play as in the second game. Plus there's also a third story which isn't really connected to the other two, it's just its own thing. So you've got 3 short stories within this particular graphic novel. So first of all, let's take a look at the novel. Now, I'm going to be using some surgical gloves for the sake of the review. As you can see, the cover art is pretty awesome, and if you're familiar with the games, you will instantly recognise the kind of style. This is the character in the second game, Sergeant James Heller. In the first game, you play as a character called Alex Mercer. Again, if you've played the games, you'll already know this. As far as the back, you've got the synopsis. This is Alex Mercer, who you actually play as in the first game. And you've got your detail stuff down here, Activision, etc. The price is roughly $15 or about £11 here in the UK. If you want to pick this up, you can get it from a number of comic book or graphic novel sources. You can get it from Amazon, eBay, that kind of thing. But enough chit chat, let's get into it. Without spoilers, of course, just to take a look at the artwork and give some feedback on the story and whether or not I'd recommend actually checking it out. Now, as I kind of mentioned just now, you've got a number of different art styles and artists involved in making this graphic novel, and in particular the different stories are covered, as you can see here, by different artists, and that contributes a different flavour, a different feel to each individual story. The stories aren't overly long, as you can see from the length of the book, or graphic novel to be more specific, but overall I think they're interesting stories. They don't give you details which are necessarily essential to the characters, they're just extra backstory. Personally, I found the first story in particular, which revolves around Alex Mercer, called, as you can see, The Anchor, to be quite a good one. Probably the best of the 3, in fact, and Alex Mercer from the first game is actually my preferred character to James Heller in the second. And without spoiling anything in particular, you can get a flavour of some of the artwork. Now, as far as the second story, it's similar, but there are some slight changes in artwork. It's a little bit, not necessarily inferior, but deliberately a bit crispier, a little bit less detailed, less slick looking than the first story. And as far as the third one, I personally feel that the third story in the 3 is actually the one which I personally like the least. And that's called Labyrinth, as you can see here. It's the one that revolves around James Heller, who's the character that you play as in the second game. And the reason why I enjoyed it less wasn't because it was a bad story, it was because, as I believe you can see from probably the next page, the character is quite blatantly based on Tyrese Gibson. You can pretty obviously see that it is based on Tyrese Gibson, and although I don't dislike the guy, in the actual game, the character doesn't look anything like Tyrese Gibson, and the fact that it's based on an actual actor just kind of threw me off when I was checking out the art and going through the story. It's not a killer thing, but it was just a strange choice to me, and as you can see again, the art slightly changes. It has a little bit more of a Marvel kind of look to the art style, more detailed, much stronger use of shadows. But overall, I really enjoyed all 3. As far as whether or not you need or should buy the book, well, as I said, it doesn't really go into anything specific that's of huge importance to the game. It's not like it gives you clues as to how to play the game better. This is more a book for people who really enjoy both games and would like to know a bit more about the characters. Maybe you're a comic book fan or graphic novel fan anyway, and you just enjoy the work of the people involved and the characters involved in the story. If that's the kind of person that you are, then I think you'll enjoy it. Personally, I like a combination of two things which makes me the perfect audience for this book. The first is that I already like the two games. And the second thing is that when I like a particular character, such as a horror movie monster, an iconic character like that, I love to get all the information that I can about said character. And in this particular occasion, it's the perfect way to do that. You get extra information about Alex Mercer, James Heller, and just the world in general. It gives you more insight into Blackwatch operations, which, again, you don't really get in the game. It's not essential information, but it's very interesting. There are plenty of references to highlight for people who've already played the game that you will appreciate. But to be honest, you don't really need to have played the games to enjoy the graphic novel. And overall, I'm not a huge collector of comics and graphic novels. My tastes tend to be very specific to certain characters or certain storylines, such as Prototype, The Thing, Alien, Predator, Pit from Image Comics. I tend to have very specific and slightly more obscure tastes. I'm personally very happy with this graphic novel, and if you get the chance to check it out, obviously if you're a fan, then I definitely would. It's an interesting look at events that aren't covered in the games and gives you a bit more insight into the characters and into the world that they live in. So overall, I would recommend checking it out if that sounds appealing to you, but it's not an essential purchase for enjoying the games themselves. But overall, that's it for this particular review, a slightly different one from the norm on the channel, as I said, and I hope that you enjoyed this review, or at least found it interesting. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.